13 years passed since February 11 uprising began, leading Yemen to brutal conflict and world's worst humanitarian crisis. Houthis say that 17 of their fighters have been killed in US-UK airstrikes in 1 month. International warnings over Rafah offensive mount as Israeli occupation plans push in southern Gaza. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is English NEWS Feb Shahzad Abdelbay. For the 13th year in a row, the setback of February 11 marked a massive grief day in the lives of Yemenis, as this day does not pass without Yemenis remembering it as the day which paved the way for the fall of the country into the hands of the militia on September 21, 2014. This report has more details.
13 years have passed since the worst turning point that Yemen has gone through to overthrow the country's institution and replacing law and order with chaos. All of that paved the way for the country to fall into the hands of the Houthi militia on the 21st of September.
The Nakba of February 11th turned Yemen from the era of knowledge to ignorance, from excess of professions to unemployment. And in the past, we were looking forward to making more achievements. But now Yemen suffers from poverty, hunger, and disease. People were safe, and now they are displaced, and children are not educated.
The Nakba of February 11th in 2011 reminds the Yemenis the dark era that dropped them into the militia tyranny. For decades since they got rid of the burden of the priestly imamate, the Yemenis lived under the umbrella of a republic that established the values and equality. However, conspiracies that the enemies kept plotting to ruin the dreams of the Yemenis began to appear clearly since the 11th of February.
February's setback ruined the dreams and hopes of Yemenis, as well as the future of education, health and unity. What Yemen is experiencing now is the presence of fragmented factions controlling the country in the north and south. We call on those who call themselves the February 11th revolutionaries to apologize to the people.
The Nakba of 2011 was a precursor to the Nakba of 2014, when the regime of imamate reared its head again to sabotage the dreams of Yemenis, who since then yearn for justice, freedom and a country of law and order. And the Cave Group imposed its sectarian project on the Yemenis, who spread this ideology in many regions.
13 years ago, February the 11th setback occurred, which aimed to overthrow the regime in the Yemeni state project and attack the state military, civil, judicial and security institutions, which have awakened the state's apparatus and components. All of this paved the way for the ill-fated December setback 2014.
The leads in both Nakbas are similar depending on the financier and the planner, but the first and last goal behind all of this was to overthrow the country's institutions and replace them with chaos and the dominance of the militias.
The Houthi group held a funeral in Sana'a for 17 of its members, including 7 colonels who were killed in US and British airstrikes. Washington and London launched airstrikes on Houthi military sites in January 11 in response to the rebel attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea. This report has more details.
US and British strikes on Houthis in Yemen are intensifying, with the group admitting the loss of 32 members. This adds to the casualties the group acknowledged, who died during a failed hijacking attempt in the Red Sea in December. Houthis have carried out around 42 attacks since November 19 against ships and US naval forces in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Initially targeting vessels heading to and from Israel, they have expanded their targets to include US and British ships. Rashad al-Alimi, head of Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council, stressed that Houthi actions, not words, are what count in UN-led peace efforts. Al-Alimi made these remarks while meeting the UN envoy Hans Gomberg in Aden on Saturday. Grunberg is on a peace tour. It began in Tehran, moved to Riyadh, then Abu Dhabi, and concluded in Yemen's interim capital of Aden, ahead of his upcoming report to the UN Security Council. The UN envoy's tour comes at a time of concern that rising tensions in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, sparked by the Houthis and met with US and British military responses, could disrupt peace efforts and hinder progress toward resolving the Yemeni crisis. These strikes were aimed at areas controlled by the Houthis in Yemen and were intended to protect U.S. naval vessels and commercial ships while enhancing security in international waters. Since January 12, the U.S., sometimes joined by the U.K., has launched about 17 strikes, including dozens of raids on Houthi-held areas in Yemen, and has also intercepted many missile and drone attacks.
One woman was injured by a Houthi sniper in Taiz. Local sources reported that a sniper affiliated with the Houthi militia targeted a woman while she was collecting firewood. The sources confirmed that the woman was injured in the right shoulder and she was transferred to a nearby hospital to receive treatment. Local residents found a fire in a women's market in Taiz, which resulted in the destruction of more than 3 large iron boxes. Sources said that a large fire broke out in this market adjacent to a secondary school for girls, which is a market visited by women. The sources added that the fire broke out after locals left a nearby mosque, and they were able to put it down by extending a water pipe from the mosque. Confrontations renewed between armed tribesmen and road security forces on the line linking Safer and the city of Ma'rib. Tribal sources reported that the clashes broke out after road security targeted a tribal crew with a drone. These tensions come at a time when the tribesmen are demanding the local authorities to abide by the agreement that orders canceling the decision to raise the prices of oil derivatives and returning to the previous pricing. The Director General of Information in Hodeidah warned of the Houthi militias continuing to store weapons among populated neighborhoods. This comes in light of the increasing frequency of American and British strikes on militia warehouses and locations. The director confirmed that the Houthi militia had stored weapons and explosives in populated neighborhoods, including government facilities in the governorate capital. Masam, the mining project in Yemen, announced that its field teams removed about 800 explosive remnants of war in the past week. The project's operation room said that the field teams were able to remove more than 700 explosive devices in the period between 3 to 9 February 2024. The report added that the operations aimed to remove more than 600 unexploded ordnance and 129 anti-tank mines, in addition to 32 explosive devices and anti-personnel mines. Saudi Arabia warned of the serious repercussions of targeting the city of Rafah in the Gaza Strip. In a statement, the kingdom affirmed its total rejection and the strong condemnation of the Palestinians' forcible displacement and renewed its demand for an immediate ceasefire. The statement said that this continued violation of international law confirms the need for an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council to stop Israel from causing an imminent humanitarian disaster. The Palestinian resistance Hamas warned that any Israeli ground offensive in Rafah is going to blow up the hostage exchange negotiations. Israel's neighbors and key mediators also warned of disaster and repercussions if its army launches a ground invasion in Gaza's southern city of Rafah. Qatar also warned of disaster and of the very serious repercussions that will take place if Rafah city suffered invasion. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry stated that it stands against launching an attack in Rafah. This came after the warning from the Israeli occupation to attack Rafah, in which about half of the Palestinian displaced takes Rafah as refugee. Egypt warned also of the consequences of this attack, which will not only affect the Palestinians but also the entire region. Trapped in and around Rafah city, more than 1 million Palestinians brace for Israel to complete a plan to evacuate them and launch a ground assault against them in the Gaza city. This report has more details.
Trapped in and around Rafah, more than 1 million Palestinians braced for Israel to complete a plan to evacuate them and launch a ground assault against the Palestinian resistance fighters in the southern Gaza city. Aid agencies warned that large numbers of civilians could die in the Israeli offensive, and the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency said it did not know how long it could work in such a high-risk operation. The head of the UNRWA agency stated that there is a sense of growing anxiety and growing panic in Rafah. People have no idea where to go. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office on Friday announced that the military was ordered to develop a plan for evacuating the population and destroying 4 battalions that it said were deployed in Rafah. The statement was issued 2 days after Netanyahu rejected the Palestinian resistance ceasefire proposal. It opens a new tab that included the release of hostages held by the Palestinian militants. Washington, Israel's main supporter, said it would not back an assault that did not protect civilians and had briefed Israel on a new U.S. national security memorandum, reminding countries receiving U.S. arms to adhere to international law. More than 1 million people driven southwards by more than 4 months of Israeli bombing of Gaza are packed into Rafah and surrounding areas on the coastal enclave's border with Egypt. Doctors and aid workers are struggling to supply even basic aid to Palestinians sheltering around Rafah. Gaza's health ministry said at least 27,947 Palestinians had been confirmed killed in the conflict and 67,459 injured, and more are buried under the rubble. The Palestinian presidency said Netanyahu's plan aimed to displace the Palestinian people from their land, stating that taking this step threatens security and peace in the region and the world. It crosses all the red lines.
Coming next in the news. World Bank says Yemen is facing risk of public debt crisis as borrowing costs are on the rise. Welcome back. Saudi aid group KS Relief continued its food security projects across Sudan, Lebanon, and Yemen. KS Relief provided more than 900 food parcels to displaced families in Sudan, from which more than 5,000 individuals benefited as part of the project to support food security in the country. The project distributed 150,000 bundles of bread to needy families of Syrians, Palestinians, and the host community living in northern Lebanon, benefiting 125,000 people. The World Bank's International Debt Report 2023 reveals Yemen's external debt, highlighting a humanitarian crisis and emphasizing the need for political resolution and stability. This report has more details.
The World Bank's International Debt Report of 2023 revealed that Yemen's total external debt balances by the end of 2022 were around $7 billion, with the most significant being long and short-term external debts, International Monetary Fund, credit allocations, special drawing rights, and public sector debts guaranteed by the government and private sector. Yemen's external debt increased from $6.5 billion in 2010 to $7.04 billion in 2018 and $7.1 billion in 2019. The central bank in Aden did not announce a number or statistics about Yemen's external public debt, only mentioning its outstanding balance of the debt of the International Development Authority of the World Bank as $1,372.4 billion at the end of the year. Yemen is currently facing one of the worst humanitarian crises the world has ever seen, with a massive contraction in real GDP per capita from 2015 to 2022, leaving two-thirds of the population in need of humanitarian aid. The World Bank's Yemen Economic Observatory report suggests that the country's prospects remain uncertain due to the restriction on oil exports, ongoing political negotiations, and any permanent truce or peace agreement. In the long term, achieving prosperity in Yemen depends on resolving political conflicts and reaching a peaceful and just settlement that addresses economic obstacles and structural issues.
A meeting was held in the city of Al Khawkha in Hodeidah to discuss the risks that fishermen face as a result of the Houthi attacks off the Red Sea. It was attended by the president of the University of Hodeidah, addressed the dangers of the threat through the economic, political, and security areas. The meeting came out with results and recommendations that included the importance of supporting fishermen, protecting fish wealth, and extending an invitation to specialized teams.
At a suitable time to tackle an important issue, which is related to fishermen in the coastal community. The fishermen here suffer huge risk due to the Houthi attacks on the Red Sea. Their lives are threatened, and it is the role of the official organizations to protect them.
The final match in the First Division Football Club League will bring together Ahli Sana'a and Tadamun from Hadramaut. In addition, Ahli Sana'a team is seeking to achieve the league title for this season after the strong performances it made this season. The team is also well aware of the difficulty of the task, as Unity will be a strong rival and an opponent in the confrontation. The popular British theatre event is going to return to Aden Country Park on February 18. The event will include food and drink stalls, a Swede swap, free sweet potatoes, cookery demonstrations, family activities, and more. This theatre was established in 2015 and aims to promote the local food and drink along with providing a place for gardeners to come together and share knowledge. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. 13 years passed since February 11 uprising began, leading Yemen to brutal conflict and world's worst humanitarian crisis. Houthis say that 17 of their fighters have been killed in US-UK airstrikes in 1 month. International warnings over Rafah offensive mount as Israeli occupation plans push in southern Gaza. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.